Hey, Bishop.
Hey.
All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to I hope will be our official time. A third of the way through the semester. So, let's see. Sorry about this past Thursday. I was going to try and have something going, even though I knew a lot of people couldn't be there, but I ended up having some issues with Zoom. Couldn't really get people into the room for whatever reason. So I figured this would probably end up working better anyway. So if anyone has anything they'd like to start us out with, feel free. If there's anything anyone's super excited to show.
I don't have a piece, but I have a really well, at least I think it's cool idea for a piece. So I'm in strings and woodwinds this year, and on the flute, if you just do that, it makes a pitch. So I think it's F sharp, F, and then E. I think if you just do the middle one, it's a G. I'm not sure. I tried it with a tuner. I mean, it kind of picked it up, not really, but I thought about having like a four-piece flute ensemble, but you don't really play it. It's a bunch of rhythmic tapping with some remnants of pitch, and I thought that would be really cool.
Yeah, Bishop, a good idea, and one that has been certainly explored. Not to say you shouldn't explore it, do it your own way, but like those extended, their flute has so many fun extended techniques. Roger might be able to speak to having written for some if he's ever done it, but like there are some, I just remember some concerts that I go to for contemporary music when I was at the conservatory that like no flute player ever actually plays the flute anymore like normal. It's like everything is like doing crazy, crazy things with it to make very cool sounds that the flute can do. So yeah, explore all those extended techniques on the flute. They're cool.
Another one you might try. I don't know if you can see that's a flute on the wall behind me. That's mine that I got in the 7th grade. If you take the mouthpiece off and play it like a clarinet, but blow into it like you would a trumpet, you can get notes out of it that way, and it sounds very much like a clarinet.
Oh, okay. I'll try that.
Just weird stuff you can do with a flute. Never tried to write anything for that or the tapping, but I noticed the tapping, all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember not really an extended technique thing, but a weird thing that that Jacob and I kind of did in the little fair or music festival thing last year, where we got to take some instruments and show them over in LYCC. And Jacob took the mouthpiece off of his trumpet, and I stuck my bassoon reed in it, and it played pretty well. It was a very interesting sound, but that was pretty cool. We just called it a rumpet, but it was fun. You get a bunch of weird combinations like that.
But yeah, that's really all I wanted to share.
I have something that I can share for a little bit before I need to leave for my lab. Share my screen really quick. Is that working?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this video game that I play. It's supposed to be this like zombie horror survival game, and I was just sitting around one day, and I was like, you know what? I'll write something as if it were to be in the game or a part of it, or etc. And here's what I got.
We're not getting it.
Oh, you're not getting it at all?
Make sure you click the little check button when it says share sound and you share your screen.
There's a button for that? Oh gosh. Share sound. Okay. Let's try that again.
Very cool, Jaron.
I love how finale, like right through here, just ignored the crescendo, the decrescendo there.
That right there, the measure before that's my favorite part. Your F sharp, your addition of the F sharp, making that totally the feel of a some type of augmented 6 chord, but instead of going to a 5, you go back to a 1 there, and it's just the coolest non-traditional way of resolving that German Italian-ish thing right before it. Instead of going to a 5, your F sharp goes to a G, like, you know, Fi goes to Sol, but your bass does not do what your bass is normally to do, and it's so cool. That's my favorite part. One measure after that, Jaron, your fortissimo, excuse me. And then right beneath that, your rallentando at the very end. Both of those G chords, one of them the G7 and the other the G, your spacing of those chords is unlike most of the chords that we've had thus far, that you've been very careful to space out, more like the harmonic series, where you don't put that third so close to the root down there. You might want to bang on those on the piano and see if that's in fact the sound you want, because if you bang a fortissimo sound that low, that close together with the G and the B and the D and the F, you might get more like the clangor of a gong than you get actual pitches of a 5/7. So it's just something that you may want the clangor of the gong. That's a cool effect, but you need to make sure you want that effect. Most of your other, you know, when I looked at the first page and even looking at now in the second page, the way you've spread these chords out, you've been much more careful to make sure that the lower register is got some more room, some space to it, as opposed to cramming everything down there in the low register. Just be aware, play that in real life, and make sure you want that fortissimo, really crunchy low sound. Beethoven uses it some really late in his career. He uses some very interesting textures that like really low crammed together notes and then like one really high pitch, a lot like your G here. So Beethoven did it. So obviously you can get away with doing it and it's still off. Beethoven was stone cold deaf at that moment, though. So there's this question of whether or not he meaning that, or I mean, I'm guessing he was. He's a genius, and so he meant it. Maybe you meant it too. Just beware. That's all.
All right, thank you, Jaron.
Mm-hmm.
What were your plans for that piece of music? Were you going to make that into a song or what, anything?
I kind of just had in mind that I was playing like a video game one day. I was like, you know, I'm gonna write something for this. I didn't plan on like making like a full thing of it, just like a few themes here and there, and then I got that one theme, and then did this different thing in the middle, and it kind of came back to it somewhat, and then it ended.
Before somebody shares something else, if I have 30 seconds to give a suggestion, over the break, one of our former SCI presidents, who lives in our state and who's working as a composer, he was in contact with me for a last minute, like 11th hour types of like editing work to make sure that his project he was working on, that had a deadline of Christmas Eve, that he beat his deadline because he was employed to make a film score for a very short movie. A movie's like maybe 30 minutes long, so it's a short. But he was employed to make the movie score, and he did, and he in contact with me, it dawned on me, it's like, you know, his name is Christian. He's actually the son of Dr. Jessup, the minister of the university. And so his name's Christian Jessup. Anyway, while he was here, he took an internship with Hans Zimmer and worked with him for a summer. And now that he's working full time as a composer, I just thought, dang, Christian, you were the president of SCI once. Would you think that you'd at all be interested in maybe coming to one of our Zoom meetings and giving I don't know, it would be one of our meetings that maybe we don't have a whole lot of our own compositions to show, that we can just kind of get his like 2 cents on, all right, here I'm working as a composer. Here's what my day looks like. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I did that really helped me to do what I'm doing. Here's what I wish I had known, just kind of be able to pick his brain. He's not that much older than y'all. He probably, I don't know, Dr. Whitfield and Roger would remember when he graduated. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he graduated 3 years ago. I mean, it's not that long ago. But anyway, I told Christian, hey, would this be something that you might want to do just to feel him out? And he wrote back this like really lovely email. It was like, I would absolutely love to do that. It would give me a chance to really kind of prepare the next crop. And I'm so happy that SCI is still alive. Frankly, when he was the president, we might have had, there were some meetings where it was Roger and Dr. Whitfield and me and like, hey guys, like we were, there was a time in there where there was no music being showed. And so we were taking turns and like teaching each other stuff about the music that we like. Like it ended up being, it was much different than it is now, where there's lots of great new music. And so when he heard that, he was so thrilled. And he said, good gracious, if there's anything I can do to give back, because he was one of the first real active SCI members. So I told him the next meeting that I was at, which unfortunately I've missed the last 2, but the next one I'd at least run it by y'all to see if this is something that you thumbs up, thumbs down, that you'd be interested in giving up one of our meetings to kind of be able a chance to talk to a real, real composer. He has 3 film scores on IMDb now. He's not Hans Zimmer or John Williams yet, but his name pops up on IMDb, like he's making his name for himself. And his biggest score thus far has been for a TV show in Czech Republic. And they got wind of him, and so he's writing this film, not film, sorry, but like, I don't even know if it's a sitcom. I don't know what it is. I have a Czech Republic friend. I should be like, are you watching this show? Because it's got some good music. You need to be on it. But I had a feeling you guys would probably give thumbs up. Am I getting the sense that like I should extend the invitation and say, hey, would you come to one of our meetings? Okay, so I'm gonna send him an email, and I'm gonna give him. I'll tell him when we're meeting. Carter, are we 2:30 Tuesday? Is this a thing?
That seems to be the best time so far. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell him 2:30 Tuesdays, and I'll ask him for like, can you give us a couple Tuesdays that might work for you? And then I'll make sure I get all that information to you guys, and then between you and Bishop and Caleb and anyone else who's in the aristocracy of SCI, y'all figure out what the best date is, and then just make sure. I don't know. I would love to make sure that we publicize that one and try to get our whole. I'm looking at all of us right now. We're all, a bunch of us are on here. I would just want to make sure that if we're gonna bring someone in, that we do our best to like try to make sure there's not just one of us, 2 of us there. And the other thing is I don't know how much money we have, and I didn't mention this to Christian, but if we have at all any budget and we're sitting here in pandemic land where we can't really go anywhere and we can't really do anything with it, I wonder if it would be a good idea just to float the idea of like giving him an honorarium, like a $50 or $100 or something, like, thank you so much for this. We want to extend our thanks to you for giving us that hour. Here's a little bit of something just to say thanks. Just an idea. I don't even know what the budgets are like for clubs during the pandemic, but if we still have budget that we're just kind of sitting on, and we don't have anywhere else to use it, it's not like I kind of want to pay our own. It's like, I'm not promising all y'all when you come back 3 years from now, you're going to get paid from SCI, but it's just, I think that would be a good gesture, to say, yeah, thanks for giving up your time, because he's working full time in a marketing company in the eastern part of the state that's keeping him busy. But I think he would prioritize this, actually. So I'm done.
All right. Anyone want to go next? If not, I can show little Schubert's lead I had to work on. Alrighty. Thanks for coming. All right, can everyone see that? All right, so we had to take some sort of poem and write music to it with accompaniment. Sort of in the style of Schubert, you know, whatever we put our minds to. And I ended up looking for a poem for like 30, 40 minutes and was like, I don't like any of the things that I remember for a Schubert lead, so I'm going to write something myself. So I took about an hour and a half to 2 hours writing a poem, and then spent probably another 3 to 4 hours of work total on this. So yeah, just today came out with the title for it. It's called Siren. Let's see if we can hear it.
Excellent. Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you.
You should see Miss Harmon about getting somebody to sing that.
You have someone with an almost 2-octave range, Carter.
Yeah.
Lord.
I think what I'll end up doing is actually have it more for a tenor voice an octave down is kind of what I'm thinking. Because I don't know of any.
Still, yeah. I mean, when it got up to F right there, I'm thinking, okay, all right, you were already down in like way beneath the staff, the G sharps. I think there's even maybe something lower than that. And now you did this F and this F sharp. And it's like, you know, you were asking a lot of this poor singer. Now that, you know, professionals can have a full 2-octave range where their tone sounds good, but I mean, like,
I'm sure I'll want to adjust a bit of it for actual singing, but I think around a tenor range is kind of what I would shoot for. I was thinking alto initially, but I think for some of the higher stuff, I want to keep it fairly high. So just drop it an octave for a tenor. I think it'd be more powerful that way.
well, the tenor will be just fine. If frankly, and Chris can speak to this as a fellow tenor, your high F sharp is actually not a big deal for the tenor. It's that tone, that the low G sharp that you have earlier,
Yeah.
most of your tenors are going to fall flat by that point. And I don't mean flat like pitch wise. I just mean like there won't be any sound. You don't usually have a tenor that can reach that low and do it well like a baritone could or a bass could. And so earlier in your piece, when you have a really cool cadence on A minor, that you've got a low G sharp and then a low A there. Yeah. And you're saying deep below too. And you don't want that moment to fall like where deep below and then nothing, because the tenor is just kind of like trying to go, oh, I mean, I can't do it. But
I think if I were to do that, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, just because at that point it is getting quieter. So I feel like it wouldn't be awful, but I may still adjust a little bit. We'll see.
I had a question, since I'm sitting far away from, I'm sitting in a comfortable chair and I'm sitting kind of far away from my screen, and I can see that you have words, but I can't read the words well. And so I don't need you to read the words, because I know you turned this into me and I can't wait to read it myself. But can you at least tell me 1 or 2 times where you were attempting to complete the assignment and like make the accompaniment and the music kind of reinforce what it is that the words are saying expression wise?
Yeah. Okay. So the whole first verse is kind of a character explaining their love of sailing and being at sea, and it's a very positive. You know, the beginning is very cheesy and major, and then as soon as it turns right here to the minor, is where the character starts, you know, circles, gears turning, getting really curious about what's under the water, about, you know, what lies in the depths. And then it progresses on, and then it goes to this, you know, sort of farther away chromatic mediant whenever the character actually leaps out into the ocean and starts to go under, get seawater in their mouth, can't hear anything anymore. They're underneath, can't hear the ocean above or the breeze. And then this third section right here, it starts the same way. And then while it's talking about kind of reminiscing and talking about the ship or the character's heart kind of leaving the character behind underwater, it's kind of, it gets that little bit of slower tinge back to major, like kind of thinking back, looking back, and then just super dark all the way to the end while the person is drowning. So there you go. Without
being able to read the poem, I did figure that the end didn't end well for our protagonist here. So you did a good enough job, even without being able to read what the heck it's about, to have told that kind of story. And I could have predicted the ending just by your musical choices. So Schubert would have been very proud that your music was speaking as loudly as the text.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Chris, are you trying to talk? We can't hear you for some reason.
Okay, so I wanted to speak on the range a little bit. If you found, well, Cheney made this up the other day, a barytenor, which is not really a real thing, because I've had to sing F sharps before. It is definitely getting up in the stratosphere of, just I can't, almost can't do it. But if you get someone that at least has an F up top, like a baritone at least has an F, the song is doable. So I probably would say more a baritone that has a decent high range.
Yeah,
minus a tenor, because there's some choir songs that we have right now that they are really low, and like I hear the tenors always, trying to get them, and Cheney's always like, if you don't have it, we have basses and baritones for that, don't worry. So I would definitely shoot for a baritone minus a tenor range.
And it always makes me uncomfortable when we even have the consideration of, and I may be totally alone in this, but the consideration of like, oh, well, we'll just bring it down a major second, or bring it down a minor third or something, or bring it up a major second. And I'm just feeling like, no, I want the A major feeling at the beginning. I don't want B flat major at the beginning, or I don't want A flat major at the beginning. Like, and that may just be, That may just be personal. I know I fight that battle with Miss Harmon all the time because she's just like, oh, take it down a minor third. It fits better in my voice. And I'm like, but Schubert wrote it for this key. It's like, this is the key he wrote it for. And so I'm always it's come to blows with the singers about that thing. And you as a composer, so it's kind of totally up to you. If you feel this as a sliding scale and you think you can bring it up a half step or lower a half step or whatever, and you don't think it changes the effect of it. I am totally strongly in the camp of that keys, whether or not we can put specific signification to a key, one half step away is a totally different experience. And that's just my personal feelings. It is so subjective, I know. But if you were thinking of this in A major at the beginning and thinking of this in F minor when you move to that middle section, it's like F sharp minor is totally different than that. And E minor is totally different than that. Like half steps one direction, it's like totally different. So anyway, I'll be quiet about my key rant. I'll give my key rant to anyone who wants to hear it, whether they want to or not.
Yeah, I think ideally I would like to find someone that could work on it to where it was singable in this key, and I would just use transposing it as a last resort. Just primarily, even more than that, I like how this sounds on the piano in these keys. So, we'll see what works.
Well, I will ask, I don't have anything to show, but I will ask just as a general thing. So I'm at a lull with my math. I had some inspiration. It was going great. And then all of a sudden, and then everything stopped. I don't really want to go for just write some stuff down, because I just don't think I make good music that way. So is there something I can do to maybe get back in the swing? Because I'm on the credo. It's the worst one to write for. And I have an idea. It's just later. And I'm trying to get all the stuff before that part, So it's been rough. So any ideas for that would be great.
Well, I'll start, but I don't want to be the only one that answers, because we got all sorts of other composers and they're all going to work different ways. But if I'm looking at something that's a project that's a big one, like you're talking about with the credo, and I don't have any ideas, or I don't like the ideas that I have, what I've found has helped me is I'll keep a little black book, so to speak. I've been doing it digitally recently, but it still works the same exact way. I say black book because that's what Beethoven did. He just carried around a book, and literally had ideas. And anytime he had it, he put an idea down. And so what I would do is I would make myself at least have an entry every day to my little digital book. And so sometimes those entries were so silly and I'll never use them, or sometimes they were something that I might be able to build off of. But I'm not thinking big. I'm just thinking an idea, even if it's just a progression, or even if it's just a snatch of a melody that I hear. And it's like, okay, I'll put that in there. I've gotten so lazy that my digital black book, so to speak, I'm not even writing things down anymore. I'm recording them on Logic. So I'm pushing record and playing something real quick, pushing save and saving it. And I have I don't know, I wouldn't say 100 of these things yet, but I don't know, a lot of them. I don't even remember what they are now, but I still feel like, okay, I'm still using the creative things in my mind. And one day, when I have a big project, I'll have some ideas that I might be able to go through and listen to those. And even if I don't use those exactly, Chris, you will be inspired by some of your other thoughts. And it might help you then to take 3 or 4 of those together and say, okay, if I use this, then this, then this, I got myself an actual 5-minute piece of music here that's using those ideas that I used. One more thing I'll say, over the break, I got this set of inspiration, like I said before, about writing all these little silly fiddle tunes for old time. And what I found I was doing is I was telling myself, I got started by calling it the 12 Fiddle Tunes of Christmas. And I made myself, I was going to write one a day. I didn't care whether it was good or bad, right? And I would write one a day. And by the end of that, I was almost near the end of the 12. And I had so many more ideas just because I was forcing myself to sit down and write one a day. And so then I started writing 2 a day. Then I started writing 3 a day. And it wasn't because I was having to struggle with it. It was because I was just pouring out with all these ideas. And when I go back and listen to all of the stuff, what I found is that some of my ideas were derivative of other ideas. It wasn't like I was coming up with 3 Grammy award-winning things every day, boom, 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 masterpiece, masterpiece, masterpiece. It's not that at all. And you shouldn't put that bar so high if you're trying to do that. But at least I'm giving you at least what works for me to get me to keep writing more stuff and to get more ideas out there. And it comes without much, forcing myself to write 1 a day ended up opening up the floodgates to ideas. And so if you would do something, even though you say you don't want to just write, crappy music, writing down, I am a big proponent of a writer writes. And even if it's crap, spend 5 minutes a day, add to your book and say, okay, good. I may never use that again, but at least I did. The next day, then the next day. You do that for a week or 2, and 1, you'll have 14 ideas, maybe 1 or 2 of them, there is something to work with. And 3, second, what might actually happen is you end up coming up with ideas so much quicker. And more ideas and more and more. And then you won't have enough time in the day to keep writing because you have your other classwork to do because you're not a full-time composer, So that's my 2 cents, but I'd be curious about the other composers here because I'm sure they've run into the writer's block, so to speak, of working on a big piece.
What I like to do is, it kind of goes along the lines of just sitting down and writing something. I'll just randomly pick out notes and then just kind of put them wherever and then see what happens. And it eventually comes into a certain mosh podge of something that I like, and I'll go with that.
I definitely think there's something to that because I will be in a stage of being blocked and I'll hear a piece that one of you guys have done and I'll just immediately be thinking of all the stuff that could be done to it. Think, well, if I'm having those ideas with you guys' music, then I should just write something down and see if I have any ideas with that.
I think that's genuine. That's like generally what I did, because I always, when I started all these pieces, I had a good idea of where it was going. And yeah, I may not have known, I'm not Mozart. I may not have known, every single little thing that I knew exactly where it was supposed to go. But, trial and error, eventually I got there. I guess it's probably just the intensity of the text that is getting me, because there's so much to talk about and then to write music on. So I think if I get over at least the little hump that I'm thinking about, and then I have that idea for the crucifixion part of the text, I think it will probably all cascade after that.
I know you're not dealing with text in English, but if you know the text well, even in Latin, it probably would work the same way as it works when we have text in English. And at least for me, and every time I'm writing a song, if I'm just sitting there at night trying to go to sleep, or I'm in the shower or something, like I'm not really thinking about composition, but I have the text on my mind, I'll find myself making up melodies with the text just all day. If I'm keep repeating that text in my mind, and eventually it almost like distills down into, okay, if I were going to sing this line, that's a cool little way of making that line work. And then you're composing, even though without even knowing it. Now, I don't go around speaking Latin, and you probably don't either, but if you would even just take little bits of the credo and like memorize the text in the morning and say, you know what, today I'm going to keep repeating this text and see, like, how would I say it? Where would I want to elongate the syllables and cut them short? Where would I want to have an important emphasis, and where would I want to, end a phrase with it? Things like that. That might help you at least come up with some melody-wise. Now, as far as the rest of your mass has been very tonal, and so you still have the supporting of those melodies with some type of progressional harmony. That would be, I guess, for another day. But at least, starting with melody, something to consider.
A couple of other things, I don't know how helpful it'll be, is one thing that, and it's hard to have any control over this, but I find myself sometimes I'm suddenly inspired. You know, I've heard some great music, I feel good, I've got a lot of energy, and it's like, oh, if I could just get in a space where I could write, I know I could come up with something great right now. And sometimes you can just go do that, and sometimes you can't. But if you can kind of key into when that happens, what triggers those moments for you, then maybe you can more engineer being free, or creating the conditions that really get you inspired. And the other thing would be, I have certainly been able to work out existing ideas, but also come up with new ideas if you're doing some sort of physical activity like pushing a lawnmower, rowing a kayak, just walking, do anything, and in the rhythm and the speed of the music that you're trying to write, and you get your whole body into it. And after a while, you're just kind of living the music. And you can have a whole lot of ideas. I remember in music history class, the day Dr. Billings brought out the bit about Beethoven scared people marching around in the fields, waving his arms and yelling. I immediately knew exactly what he was doing. He was working out the music in his head, making sure it actually worked. And that's a good way to do it.
So I'll go to the quad at about 3 o'clock and one day and just, all right, oh yeah, just go.
Well, it doesn't have to be anything anybody notices. Like I said, pushing a lawnmower works for me very well.
I used to work with a composer at my previous job, Chris, that I wish I could just emulate his view of all this stuff. He would write music every day, and he would be so willing to share the music that he's writing, knowing full well that he's not proud of it. He doesn't like it. It's not good. Things like this. He didn't care. And I had always been up to that moment so like thinking that, oh, this is music writing. It's like every note has to be the gospel truth, and I have to like belabor over every single pitch to make sure it's exactly divinely inspired. This guy would just put notes on there. If it's good, if it's bad, it didn't faze him at all. It's like he was so confident in that he's eventually going to have some good ideas, and not all ideas are good. And what was so nice is that there was no shame in it. There was no like, I'm embarrassed that someone is seeing not my best work, and that he wouldn't write 100 things and then only pick that one thing to show. We could see him in his, metaphorical nakedness, like compositional nakedness. Like, that was not this has not been a good week. This is all garbage. Here, you want to see it? It's like there was no sense of hiding that. And I know that when I was a composer your age, ain't nothing like that. I was keeping everything so secret. That's what I like about SCI, is that y'all are so willing to air your dirty laundry and say, look, I'm trying this new thing. I don't know if it's good. Here it is. It's like, I was never that confident to do that. I was wanted to keep that secret. And then whenever I would come up with one thing I liked and be like, well, I composed a little bit here. You can look at this, but not look at the 100 mistakes that I made to make that one thing, And so all that to say, I admired that so much from him he's one of my main inspirations to really push this, like, just right, and that your notes don't have to be good. And like, there is still, I know you started by saying you don't like to do that, but I'm here again reinforcing that, like, I don't really think there's any harm in that. Even if you burn all that stuff and you don't want to show it to anybody, so be it, that's fine. But if you do show it to somebody, or you show it to SCI and you're like, I don't love this, what we will say might very well like get you inspired to do something else. And it's like, this might just be a link in the chain of the process that you then finally come up with. I love the credo as written, and I was totally stuck on it. And now look at all this, I wrote this, then that sucked. Someone said something about this one. It made me think of it a different way. Now I got my idea that I really like. You never know how you're going to land on it, I guess is what I'm going to say. And that the actual process of writing will help you land on what you end up really liking.
All right, I think we have time for about one more if anyone has anything else.
I have a song that I finally finished that I started 2 years ago. It's a finished recording, but it's a little song about basically how I met my wife. So this is, I don't have a video for this yet. I plan to make one, but for now I just put it on SoundCloud. So here it is. I met my first friend in 1961. I was a year old, but I knew she was the one. We rode tricycles in the basement and rubbed ping pong balls on the paddles till they were hot. My first friend is my best friend. My best friend was my first friend. I met her on the day that she was born. We'd take vacations and have picnics in the park. I stayed at her house when my sister was born. We'd go shopping with our mothers and pick out all the furnishings we'd want. My best friend is my first friend. My first friend was my best friend. I met her on the day that she was born. There were many years we were apart, but she was always hidden in my heart. Then one day, after all my struggle, I saw her and the darkness crumbled. Now there is a light on in my heart. And then one day I married my first friend. Now we're together and wish that time would never end. It still seems like just yesterday. We are home in the place that we belong. I came home to my best friend. My first friend is my best friend. Now we are at home together. My best friend was my first friend. I came home to my best friend. Now we are at home together. She is my best friend forever. Now we are at home forevermore.
Roger, are you in the Beatles, man? Because that was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Hold on, this thing's still playing. There we go. All right, I
Was
stopped
that,
it.
Roger, was that, did you do one of those songwriting workshops or something? Was that one of the things? I remember a couple years ago, you went somewhere and worked with some folks. Was that the result of that experience or not?
That was the song I wrote right before I went, just to make sure I had a process for writing a song. I felt very unprepared going to this thing, which was held by Neil Morse.
Okay.
And it was much more, writing progressive rock. This was really light compared to what everybody else was there doing. But at the end of the week, I hadn't written anything enough that I felt was worth working on, and I already had this, so I got them to play on it, and it was a lot of fun. And then I finished the recording what I could. But there was like 32 tracks of just drums, so I had to give it to somebody to mix because I just couldn't do that here. So Aaron Meyer, who taught the recording class, I took his recording class. That's how I met him. He mixed it and played some more guitar on it.
He can mix that many tracks at his own little studio.
Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Well,
the
it's
strings
awesome.
I did in Finale. I wrote and recorded that in Finale, so I gave him a finished track of that little string section in the middle. And everything else was, the other instruments were MIDI. The keyboard, the piano, and the organ, that was all just a MIDI track. I told him just pick out the sounds you think work. And he basically used what I had to start with, but he tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah, I could tell. That's one of the things I appreciated most about it, is that I could tell you were playing a lot of that stuff, and so there's that sense of humanity of someone's hands actually playing on a keyboard, that you can tell that you could, if you had you times 4 or 5, you could perform that live and it would sound almost the same, because you're actually being able to play it, as opposed to just laying down an electronic track on Finale and let Finale play it with its very strict rhythms and stuff like that. Like, you could tell it breathed.
Yeah, well, that was another thing about having a live drummer and a bass player. I mean, they played to a click track, but it was pretty exciting to me, because Gabe didn't play what I had. I had a MIDI drum track with it that I had played on a keyboard, and particularly in the bridge, he was playing a completely different rhythm than I was. But something I learned a long time ago, as long as you're recording at home, you can do exactly what you want. But the minute you turn it over and let somebody else play on it, particularly in a recording studio, they're going to have their own ideas. And it's really helpful if you can just let things be what they are. And of course, if you start being successful and you make a record, and then you got a record company saying, we like this song, but we don't really like that one. It's, if you can handle it by the time you get to that point, you'll be a lot better off.
It always makes me wonder what it is they like, because it could be that you write all these songs and you had one person work on that one song that ends up being really popular. And it's like, I wonder if it's them that they actually like. It's that person's input that they like. I don't even like my own stuff.
Well, it's a big world. I'm sure that's happened. But yeah, it's what you were saying, cheesy major chords and happy, and it's just kind of what I came up with.
What's Linda think of it?
She loves it.
Whew.
Yeah. So you want to get in good with your girlfriends, write them a song.
Well, even if it's it has the the cheesy major feel, it was still harmonically very interesting. There wasn't a time where I felt bored, because like, oh, I know what's coming after this, and no, it would change, and it would change again, and I'd be like, this is cool.
Yeah. Well, I did grow up with the Beatles and other groups like them. I thought the piano at the beginning was a little bit Supertramp.
It's because you're a pianist. I mean, I'm totally biased, but it's like, you can tell when a pianist writes something sometimes, like your chord progressions very rarely is a name another instrument, going to write those types of progressions. It's I don't know. We pianists stick together and like those really interesting, cool progressions with all of your great modulations, chromatic media thrown in there. Like, there's just all we could have used that for an aural skills. Maybe I'll ask your permission, and then we'll do that as a harmonic analysis, harmonic dictation for at least 2 of the people on this call are in that class, and it would be great.
That would be really cool, because I just wrote where I thought it ought to go. I know that I like having a minor 5 chord, but I mean, that's
minor 5 to 4. I love that. I love your usage of going to a minor 5 and then going and resolving it to a 4. That's great. And then, I don't know, a couple of your like la, sol, right below sol, like fi down to fa. Like there are a couple of cool like rock progressions in there that you use a lot, starting with 6. And kind of descending down from 6 by half step. Some great stuff that the aural skillsers would benefit from hearing, because that's just not Beethoven harmony. It's like we need to be aware of what rock harmonies sometimes do.
Yeah.
And love the modulation to E flat at the end from D flat.
I felt like it needed to kind of kick into high gear there, and E or E flat just feels more rock and roll. To me, the D flat's got a nice bright feel to it. And then suddenly it, it just kind of kicks into just drive and rock. I don't know. I mean, I've got kind of the same thing you do with keys, but not to the degree, because I can be, I can lose my bearings and not necessarily know what key I'm listening to, but I definitely feel like the keys have colors, or uh, sometimes it's not really colors. A kind of feels sharp, like not like pitch sharp, but sharp like a knife edge. It's hard to describe, but they do have characters.
I wonder what your E flat rock and roll sentence, how that would resonate with an actual guitarist who's like he's sitting in the studio getting your piece of music ready to be the gigging guitarist, and you're like, I just wanted to rock, I wrote it in E flat for you, and it's like, oh God, that's like poor guitarist just trying to play an E flat.
I don't know. The grunge people have been tuning down forever.
That's fine, tuned down, but now you've just been playing in D flat for a while too. So it's like, I guess if you're going to record it maybe separately, or maybe just tune down, play in D and play in E, like I guess you could
Right.
do that.
Yeah. I remember the day I realized after when the first Van Halen album came out, and I kept thinking there's something different about this. And then I realized the whole thing's down a half step. And people just weren't doing that in 1970, whatever, when that album came out.
All right. Thank you, Roger. That was awesome.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me using that, Roger, is it available on SoundCloud to just regular schlemiels that can just,
Yeah.
whoever has the
Yeah.
link? Okay, I might use parts of
just-
that for oral skills.
Yeah, just go to SoundCloud and look for me, and there it is. Along with that, the Clara Schumann piece is there too.
Oh yeah, oh good. That one's got some good chords in it too.
Yeah.
The doo-woppy thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh God, that was fun. That was fun. Caleb, I'm going to send you the link to this video once we sign off. So be looking for it.
Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks.
See you next week.
See ya.